Hi everyone, welcome back, and today's chat is going to be all about yoga books. I have so many, too many yoga books, but I've just picked out 7 of my absolute favourites I reach for all the time, like when I'm class planning, for my own personal practice and learning. There's just one book that isn't necessarily a yoga book, but I think it's a really important book if you are practicing yoga and like getting to know why you feel stuff and why your body might be reacting a certain way in certain poses. I will link all of these books down below. If you are interested in any, you can hit those links and click to buy. Let's get straight into it. So this isn't in any particular order, I'm just picking them up as I go along, but the first book, yoga book that I ever bought was this Insight Yoga by Sarah Powers. I bought this just before my 200-hour teacher training and started to read it and was like, loved it, and I dip into it all the time. It's a really great read just for like your own kind of broad learning on things, but also like a good reference book. There's like yin and yang practices in here, so if you learn quite well through pictures and text, this would be a great book for you. I don't particularly learn well like this. I find it very interesting to read and I do really enjoy it as a reference book, but I prefer practicing to videos or like in real life. The pictures are great and the explanations are so like just normal. Does that make sense? Just like it's not too yogic, although there is like philosophy in there which is quite heavy going. Like you can see that I've made some notes here, and certain pages I've had to like reread quite a few times just to kind of understand it. I will always come back to, like, I think it's a really great one to have. The next book is for pregnant ladies, and this would be a really great gift for if you know anyone who's pregnant and into yoga, or someone that's doing their pregnancy yoga teacher training. It's this one, Bountiful, Beautiful, Blissful. Experience the natural power of pregnancy and birth with Kundalini yoga and meditation. It's amazing. Like honestly, it's a great read from like cover to cover, like as a standalone kind of thing. There's like meditations and practices in here that are just, I just think would be so lovely for like pregnant ladies. I find it really helpful to plan my pregnancy classes with this because it goes through the trimesters, like what would be suitable for each. There's a little bit of like singing and chanting, which isn't really my bag, but if you were into that, I mean, I've never been pregnant, but getting into the mindset of pregnancy and birthing, I think it explains it in such a beautiful way, and it's just a really nice read that's like kind of away from the science and more about women's intuition. Love it. The next one is the one that isn't necessarily a yoga book, but I think it is really important. The Body Keeps the Score, Mind, Brain and Body in the Transformation of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk. This book, you've probably seen this quite a lot. It is brilliant. It's a tough read, I'm not gonna lie. If you can get past the first this much, I guess. This is really science heavy and I found it really hard, and I was like, how the hell am I gonna get through this book? Like I almost didn't. But once you get past this, I found this just amazing, so interesting. Like the stories are incredible. They don't necessarily touch on yoga all that much, but it just made me think about yin yoga and why we come up with sensations or thoughts linking back to trauma. And you think of you would think of like trauma as something that's like really bad that's happened to someone, but it's also when there's been a lack of good things that have happened to you. So if you think of trauma in that way, literally anyone can benefit from this book. So if you're interested in like mental health or healing, or yeah, as I say, yoga, particularly yin yoga, I think this would complement a yin yoga practice really well. I'd highly recommend this book, but it is heavy going. Like I had to dip in and out of it because it was making me think, which is great, but I think it was bringing up a lot of stuff that I hadn't necessarily maybe processed or thought about in a while. Really interesting, but heavy going. The next book is a reference book that we were told to buy on my 200-hour yoga teacher training, and it's brilliant. It is this yoga anatomy, and it just breaks down anatomy basically. Like the first bit is quite short. You talk about like the respiratory system, muscles and bones and ligaments and things, how our spine is the way it is. I find that fascinating. The bit on breathing is like fascinating as well. And then the rest of the book, or the majority of the book, is like pose analysis. Get a good one. What muscles will be like predominantly used in each pose, and then it also talks about like what actions are happening within each pose. The illustrations are incredible. They are so good. Yeah, you can see like it mentions like the digestive system there. I find this so good just to come back to, like, you know when you've been practicing poses for a little while and then you kind of forget what you're actually supposed to be doing it because you slip into bad habits. It's just nice to come back to this and be like, oh right, I am doing that right, or oh, I hadn't thought of that. So when I do a pose tutorial on this YouTube channel, I usually look it up in here first, and I use this as a really great reference book. I think it's also good for class planning as well. So like if you were planning a sequence for yourself or for your class and you were thinking of a peak pose, say like headstand or something, you could look up like what muscles will be predominantly used, what you would need to warm up, and then you can kind of work from there. So yeah, really, really great reference book. It's not really a read cover to cover. I'm wondering whether to leave my favourite until last. I'll leave my favourite until last. The next one is Yoga for the Subtle Body. I haven't read all of this one yet. I'm kind of halfway through. It's I'm using it as more of a reference book again, but it is incredibly interesting. A guide to the physical and energetic anatomy of yoga. So if you're interested in anatomy, but also how it relates to like the more spiritual or energetic level of yoga, this is a great book. Honestly, it is written so well that even I can understand it. Like, I think it is brilliant. There's a whole bit on the feet which like blew my mind, and the sacrum as well. So yeah, it doesn't just like talk about anatomy as in like the scientific element, it also talks about it in like its energetic level as well. So a little bit about the chakras. Obviously you can tell it to have chakras in it because of this color-coded thing. So yeah, really, really good one. This one is another reference book, and again, I haven't read it cover to cover. I did try to read it cover to cover, and I was like, I don't think this is how it's supposed to be read. So we'll try it again, but I tend to like dip in and out of bits. And this is more for my own personal learning because it is on the chakras. So it's Eastern Body, Western Mind, Psychology and the Chakra System as a Path to the Self. I use this for my own personal practice because I don't feel confident enough talking about chakras to teach it to other people. Like, I think I'd be doing a disservice, so I don't. But I do use it for my own learning for myself. So like for my own practice, for my own kind of study. I was quite resistant to chakras for a little while, but then there's been times when I've been ill and there's no other explanation as to why I'm ill or feel a certain way, and then I'll look it up in here and I'll be like, that's it, it works. And then I do the thing that it says and it's like, okay, there's something to this. This is a personal one for me and I really, really love it. It's quite chunky and I probably will get round to reading it cover to cover at some point. I'm finding just dipping in and out of it as like a reference book really handy. So yeah, it's a good one. Okay, number 7 and my final one. It's the smallest, it's the quickest read. This really changed my perspective on practicing and teaching yoga, and it's called Perfectly Imperfect, The Art and Soul of Yoga Practice by Baron Baptiste. Yeah, really easy little read, like honestly, so easy. I think this would be great for anyone, literally, like if you're advanced, if you're a beginner. I think he explains the foundations and theory of yoga in the most simple way, but the most powerful way as well. How we can kind of practice more than just yoga on the mat. Like, what is yoga on the mat anyway? Like, it's a tiny portion of yoga. This also helped me kind of transform how I was practicing yoga on the mat. Like, you know, in the past I've been all about power yoga, harder, better, stronger, faster, hotter, but actually maybe that doesn't serve me so well, and why am I doing that? What am I trying to prove in a way? Like, yeah, I really feel like I'm not doing this justice, but it is honestly amazing. Is there any like little quotes or anything that I can read you? I don't think my review is doing it justice. So this is a quote from the New York Times. Baron says exactly what our spirits need to hear. Imperfectly imperfect is the real deal. It's honest, insightful and inspiring, and it shows us the true meaning and power of yoga. This book will wake up every aspect of your practice and give you the tools you need to show up fully every day, both on and off the mat. This is a seriously empowering read. And honestly, it is. If you buy any of these, get this one. Or if you have a friend that's into yoga, get them this one. I find with books, like, I'm usually a person that once I've read it, I'm happy to like give it away to someone or give it to charity. But these ones, I just can't. I will reread. I've read this twice already, and I'm sure I'll read it many, many more times. But yeah, get this one, Imperfectly Imperfect. And that concludes our yoga books chat today. If you have any yoga books that you think would be really helpful for people, please leave them in the comments below and we can get a little kind of book club going. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a little thumbs up, a little share, and I'll see you tomorrow for another flow. Bye!